Brussels, in which we invited several people to come and give views from the region, from neighbouring countries, see what is the local perception, let us say, around Zimbabwe situation, and how the EU can play a constructive role. And it was essentially on the balance of all of those that the decision was taken. It was a difficult decision to come to, I must say, because there were quite different opinions within the EU. It was clearly not an easy, it was not an obvious decision to take. It was the result of a very lengthy and difficult debate, which came to the conclusion. Because it is a very difficult and complicated situation. It's one which is not at all easy, and it is not evident as to what sort of policy on the part of the Union is going to be the most constructive for Zimbabwe, and therefore for the Union's interest as well.
Thank you very much.
Yes, I just wanted to ask, to what extent is, because there's been a mention that policy has shifted towards a credible election. And certainly at the end of it all, you want a credible election. Even the inter-party agreement is pointing towards a credible election. But to what extent is this, a calculated move towards ensuring that your partners in the SADC ensure that there is a free and fair election, there is the absence of violence, there is the opening up of democratic space, as opposed to a blind rush into an election for the sake of an election?
I mean, our policy shift was not something intended to provoke a change in the situation. Our policy shift was a response to what we perceived as being a change in emphasis in Zimbabwe. And those that we listened to were telling us that there had been, in Zimbabwe itself, a change of emphasis. That the GPA was getting bogged down on a number of issues, and that it could be rather unproductive to concentrate then on trying to sort of micromanage these various issues, this large number of issues which still had to be sorted out between the parties. And it was clearly the opinion of the principals in Zimbabwe and the SADC that the most efficient way forward now would be to work out what was necessary to have elections, which would give a result which everybody would feel happy with. Because that finally would be probably the biggest step forward. And if that step were taken, then a lot of these other issues would automatically fall in place. So our policy shift was in response to what we perceived as being a change in intentions within the region.
Thank you very much. Can I urge people when they ask a question to give their name and affiliation?
Yes, my name is Gideon Shoko from the ZCT. I just want to understand from the gentleman from the EU whether they, now that they've shifted to elections, have they now put a roadmap that is going to take care of the issues of violence, intimidation, and harassment? Because the moment the elections were talked about, I still remember that Mugabe talked about these elections when he addressed the youth conference, and then he talked about the election when they were there having their conference in Itare. After that, there was an upsurge of violence. Now, have we, you from your own side, that you are now no longer concentrating on the GPA, because we thought the GPA was one of the roadmap that we would use to get to a credible election. have you now put in place the roadmap to a credible election? And if you've put anything, are you able to share that with us so that when we get back home, we can tell our constituencies what you are putting in place in readiness for the elections?
We do not have the ambition to draw up a roadmap for Zimbabwe. We would never attempt to do such things, I would hope. What I have learned is that there has been a lot of discussion between SADC and the principals in Zimbabwe about such a roadmap. I have heard that various drafts have been discussed and been exchanged. I'm not aware that a final roadmap has been agreed at this point in time, but I believe that is the intention. It is my personal anticipation that were such a roadmap to emerge and were it to stand up to scrutiny, then that would have a very significant effect on the EU restrictive measures. So I can't say to you, yes, for credible elections to happen in Zimbabwe, this is the list, the task list, these are the things which have to be done, because that's something which has to be agreed between the parties. They have to do that. SADC is facilitating that discussion. And as soon as that product exists, then, as I say, that's something which is going to be looked at, and I'm sure will be very influential on the EU.
Maybe I can ask a question to slightly abuse the position of the chair here. In terms of the SADC interventions, one of the key areas that seem to have been the mediating group with Maharaj and Mkula and Ndibizulu. What is the current position of that group and how effective do you think it's been?
I think that is probably the most effective group at working with the principals in order to get an agreement. I don't see any more effective body than that around. If there were, I would be very interested as well. That's the way that I see it.
Wim Leijsen from COS. I want to know if the European Union is doing some efforts to have a common position together with other active international actors like the United States or China.
Yeah. Yes. There is close cooperation with both of those. I think that what we have, I've myself been to Beijing to talk about this with China. And I think what we have to appreciate is that sort of different powers in the world come from a different starting point, and they have a different sort of perception as to how they should act in order to influence other countries and how they should also the principles of what should be expected from other countries. We have a particular partnership with Zimbabwe which sets certain fundamental elements, and that is at the very base of our relations with Zimbabwe. Other countries which have those similar fundamental elements as the basis for their relationship will be closely aligned, I think, with the position which is taken by the European Union, and are looking actually rather to the European Union for the leadership in terms of what policy should be. Is that clear enough? You were sort of puzzled there. I'm not being too
Right, further questions to
which there was a general agreement, and I think that would be a very good step forward.